All right, Shalom. Before I get started, I want to give all the praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shai Bahasham Rakak Kwadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders, a great millstone who taught me this truth. Shalom to the hopeful elect. Back at you with another live lesson through the Holy Spirit, the Rakak Kwadash. I pray that this lesson is edifying. News and prophecy. Pay attention. The play is in motion. Stay on the ready. All right. Because one thing we know, that judgment and calamity can come without warning, man. All right. And what I want to go through in this lesson here is to show you, again, the play is in motion. All right. And what I mean is they could use the situation with Iran, this war, okay, some type of false flag cyber attack to bring in the beast, to bring in the chip. All right. This is their way of transitioning into the new system. All right. You're going to see, because if you're in the spirit, okay, you can easily see this thing, coming to fruition, right? Real quick. And we're going to come back to this article a little later, right? But again, calamity and judgment can come without warning. So you got to stay ready. All right. Real quick. Okay. This is Matthew 24 and verse 42. Be ready for his coming, right? Matthew 24, verse 42. This is, watch therefore, for ye know not what hour your Lord doeth come. All right. This is why we maintain and stay on the watch. All right. We stay occupied in prophecy as we were commanded. Right. This is, watch therefore, for you know not what hour your Lord doeth come. Verse 43. But know this, but know this, that if the good man of the house had known and would watch the thief would come, he would have watched. All right. So if you knew that the robber was coming, all right, you would have been watching. All right. You'd have been on guard. You would have been paying attention. All right. It says he would have watched and would not have suffered his house to be broken up. Verse 44. Therefore, be ye also ready. All right. Be on the ready. Stay on the ready. All right. Therefore, be ye also ready, for in such an hour as you think not, the Son of Man cometh. Right. So major events can happen suddenly, man. Okay. This is why we were commanded to watch and stay prepared at all times. All right. And you're going to see in a minute. Let me finish this out. Verse 45. Who then is a faithful and wise servant, whom his Lord hath made ruler over his household, to give them meat in due season? Blessed is that servant whom his Lord, when he cometh, shall find so doing. All right, doing the work. All right, being occupied in prophecy. All right. Verse 47. Verily I say unto you, that he shall make him ruler over all his goods. But it says, but if that evil servant shall say in his heart, my Lord delayeth his coming. All right, which a lot of our people are in that spirit. The scriptures talk about how the plagues, they slack not but a moment. All right, how everything is increasing. All right, prophecies come to pass even more at a rapid pace. All right, so the Lord is not delaying his coming. Verse 49. And shall begin to smite his fellow servants, and to eat and drink with the drunken. The Lord of that servant shall come in a day when he looketh not for him. All right. The Lord is about to catch a lot of people slipping. All right. The Lord of that servant shall come in the day when he looketh not for him, in an hour that he is not aware of, and shall cut him asunder and appoint him his portion with the hypocrites. There should be weeping and gnashing of teeth. All right. So let's get into it here.
Experts are now warning that the United States is possibly 2 weeks away from a massive supply chain crisis, a huge disruption. You need to be well aware of what is going to take place in just a matter of weeks. And this is extremely concerning. This is going to impact your wallet. This is also going to impact your life. I'll explain more on that in just a moment. But you need to see what people are warning us about. Look at this. It says supply chain disruptions from the Iran war could raise prices for drugs, electronics, and more. Now, where do we go from here and why? Why is all this happening at this time? Well, let's talk about it. It says the Iran war has effectively halted oil tanker movement in the key Strait of Hormuz, but it's also disrupting the wider global supply chain beyond oil, affecting everything from pharmaceuticals from India, semiconductors from Asia, and oil-derived products like fertilizers that come from the Middle East. I talked about this last week, and I said the food crisis is serious because of the cost of fertilizer. That's it. Fertilizer. I have a friend. He runs a small farm, well, fairly big, but it's small in his eyes. It's a small farm in California, or a ranch, or whatever you want to call it. He does a lot of different things, from cattle, and he grows some vegetables and stuff like that. One of the things he said is, as gas prices shoot up, well, it becomes more expensive for him to go and farm. It's also more expensive very soon because of fertilizer costs. Once he has to renew and re-up his fertilizer supply, it's going to be a massive shock to his wallet. Guess what? He's going to push that over to the consumer. So be prepared. Prices will go up. I want to show you this, though.
It's just going to get worse now.
When these supply chain interruptions happen, most products have about a 2 to 3 weeks worth of supply in storage before running into supply issues at local stores. After that, prices typically shoot up. For these oil-producing countries in the Middle East, they fill their storage tanks in about 3 weeks too, which means they'll stop producing oil if they can't export it.
That's one of the biggest concerns. Okay, if these oil companies, especially OPEC, and I'm gonna play you another video in just a moment. Okay, but I want to show you something. It says the Iran-U.S. war chokes key shipping lane and threatens global cargo industry. It's because of this area here. The OPEC nations around the Strait of Hormuz. I want to play some for you. Listen to this right here.
The conflict is also disrupting the wider global supply chain beyond oil. It's affecting everything from pharmaceuticals from India, semiconductors and batteries from Asia, and oil-derived products like fertilizer that come from the Middle East. That's because cargo ships are stuck in the Persian Gulf, or they're taking a much longer detour around the southern tip of Africa.
What we have seen in the past is when we experience stuff like this, where a cargo ship has to take a longer route to get over to the United States, when it has to take a longer route in order to get to Europe or wherever, right? Doesn't matter. The concern is that it costs more money, and everybody's worried about the money side. But there's a bigger thing here, okay? And I'm going to explain that in a moment. But first, I want to play this clip for you, okay? Listen to this right here, and then we're going to talk about it.
Qatar's energy minister telling the Financial Times that if tankers continue to idle in the Strait of Hormuz because it's just too dangerous to maneuver through the critical choke point right now, exporters will be forced to halt energy production within days, and oil prices could spike to $150 a barrel.
$150 a barrel. Now, here's the concern. So if oil can't move, producers will stop pumping it, tankers will stop shipping it, the refineries will slow production, they don't need to refine as much, and then factories are going to lose energy, they're going to lose raw materials, and we're going to see this kind of cascading effect that's going to hit not just the oil industry, everybody else. We use oil in everything. Everything. Oil's needed to produce cell phones. Oil's needed for your vehicles. Oil's needed for our homes to keep them, warm and cool, and right. It's just ridiculous. Here's what experts say. This is where it's going to hit us hard. Okay. Here are the industries that will get hit first. Energy's number one. Gas, diesel, heating fuel, all becomes more expensive, or it's limited. Food, fertilizer becomes more expensive. Farm fuel, more expensive. Transporting that food from the farm to the supplier becomes more expensive, much more expensive. Manufacturing, plastics, car parts, electronics, we use oil for this. We also ship certain pieces from one country to another in order to put the whole piece together. Become more expensive. Again, if we cannot charge a higher price, a higher premium for a product, guess what? We have to wait till costs come down so that we can actually afford it. We can actually sell something that people will buy. If we have to wait so long, there will be supply chain disruptions. Keep in mind what happened during the pandemic. We could see that all happen again.
Right. So this is why we are not to be ignorant of the times and seasons we live in. All right. See, this event and these things that are going on, all right, these calamities that could be used to bring in that transition, right? Real fast. But we'll get more into it. I want to just play this whole video out, right? Real fast. 1 Thessalonians 5:1. And it reads, it says, but of the times and the seasons, brethren, you have no need that I write unto you, right? I just want to hit this word seasons real quick. All right. We're not ignorant of the times and seasons that we dwell in, man. Okay. That word for seasons.
Strong's G 2540. Kairos.
That's the word for seasons. The point number one here. It says a fixed and indefinite time, the time when things are brought to crisis. All right. This is where we're at right now, man. Okay. This society is about to be brought to crisis, man. All right. The time when things are brought to crisis, the decisive epoch waited for. Again, this is what we're waiting on, right? Let me look up this word epoch. I got it here. Epoch. The definition, it says a period of time in history or of a person's life, typically one marked by notable events or particular characteristics, right? So what's about to happen is going to be definitely a notable event, okay? Because as we get more into the destruction of the supply chain, and Iran got hackers that are aiming to attack banks and things like that, what's going to happen? They're going to crash the system, okay? So as we've been warning week after week, day after day, they're going to bring in the mark of the beast somehow, some fashion, and this is the way they're going to do it. Okay, they can push that chip in the name of cybersecurity or some shit like that, man, to identify who's who, the whole nine. Okay, cyber protection and all of that. The beginning of a distinctive period in the history of someone or something. All right. The meaning of epoch is an event or a time marked by an event that begins a new period or development. You see that? So definitely, man, they're going to use these scenarios here to bring in that transition of the beast. Okay, and we'll get more into it. Right? Let's finish this out. And you'll see what I mean in a minute.
The supply chain disruptions were one of the greatest factors in this really run up for inflation. We saw over 9% inflation because of two things: supply chain disruptions and a massive stimulus that we got here in the United States. But it doesn't end there. Furniture, clothing, appliances all become more expensive. Pharmaceuticals, medical supplies, plastics, right? Anything with plastic, hospital equipment, all becomes more expensive. Okay? I want to play the rest of this clip for you. Listen to this.
Again, right now here in the U.S., they're $91 a barrel. But let's bring in Paul Sankey, president of Sankey Research and considered one of the top oil and energy analysts in the country. Paul, as we take a look at the map of the Persian Gulf, there are 5 countries which are OPEC members of this, and they go through this exporting waterway. So they ring fence it. Saudi Arabia, Iran, Iraq, Kuwait, the UAE. Qatar is not a member of the OPEC group. It had been, but in 2019, it wanted to just focus on liquid natural gas. But it is the world's second largest producer of LNG behind the U.S. Do you believe what the minister from Qatar is saying, or is he just talking his book?
No, they're very responsible indeed. In fact, they've really styled themselves as, if you like, the Saudi Arabia of natural gas. And so when he's expressing these concerns, he's quite legitimate in the argument that we'll go to 150. Yeah, absolutely.
What is your prediction?
Well, the problem is that the cure for high prices is high prices. And so what you're going to see here is, as you mentioned, with, for example, jet demand, we've got jet fuel prices in Asia at $250 a barrel. You know, so what you're going to see is...
Compared to before this?
It would have been under 100 easily.
What he said was interesting. The cure for high prices is high prices. How does that make sense? That's what it comes down to. In order to bring prices down, we have to push prices up. We have to slow demand. That's what we have to do. And that is extremely concerning. And this is also why there is concern about a supply chain disruption. Because in order to really disrupt our supply chain, guess what? We're going to see higher prices. We have to push prices so high that consumers stop demanding the products. That's going to actually give us more products that we can go and sell later on. Again, it's crazy, but that's where we're at.
And so, you know, you're doubling prices here from the lows, absolutely more than, and genuine physical shortages, because, of course, we measure all this stuff in barrels a day. Global oil market's 105 million barrels a day. Just in oil, you're looking at 20 million barrels a day going through the Straits. And we've already lost 5-6 days. It becomes very, very large amounts of oil that need to be made up.
Do you see what he's saying right there? That we're already losing 25 million barrels of oil a day. Okay? We have to make that up. If we do not make that up, then we're going to see this cascading effect where we have to eventually make it up. The concern, though, is that, and we've been hearing this for the last few days, is that if these oil companies can't get their oil through the Strait of Hormuz, and they can't get their shipments to go, the concern is that they're going to halt production. They will halt production temporarily in order to wait this out. Because why are they going to continue to pay to have it refined and have all this oil shipped when the oil's sitting there? They don't need a 3-week backlog of oil sitting just right outside the Strait of Hormuz. We've experienced this before during the pandemic. The shipping bottlenecks, the inflation that came as a result. That's what experts are concerned with. So I want to leave you with this. What we need to watch for at this time, okay? What Americans should watch for. We need to watch for diesel and gas shortages. We need to watch for food price increasing substantially. We need to watch for shipping delays. That's a big one. Okay. A parts shortage, another big one. When you start to see parts or certain items that you ordered online, it's taking them much longer to arrive. That's a concern. And the last one, fertilizer price spikes. These are all big concerns that as soon as they start hitting us here in the U.S., we're going to see this really explode. So as soon as we get more information on this, I promise I'll bring you all the latest news and updates as soon as possible. But just understand, experts say it's going to take about 3 weeks for these disruptions to occur. We're already 1 week in. That means we got 2 weeks left from.
Yeah. Hey, these is part of the plagues real fast, right? Let me just make that point or 2 points here. This is Revelation 6 and 8. Okay. Okay, this is Revelation chapter 6 and verse 8, right? I started 7. All right. The fourth seal, death. Revelation 6 and 7. And when he had opened the fourth seal, I heard the voice of the fourth beast say, "Come and see." Verse 8. And I looked, and behold, a pale horse. And his name that sat on him was Death, and hell followed with him. All right. So the Lord is about to bring various scenarios of death. All right. Again, this is part of the plagues here. Right. And on him was death, and hell followed with him. And power was given unto them over the fourth part of the earth. All right. That represents pretty much Esau's dominion. All right. His realm, so to speak. Okay. It says over the fourth part of the earth to kill with the sword and with hunger. Okay. And with hunger and with death and with the beast of the earth. Right. Let me add on to that real quick. Ezekiel 4:16. Okay. Ezekiel 4:16. And it reads, moreover, he said unto me, Son of man, behold, I will break the staff of bread in Jerusalem, and they should eat bread by weight and with care, and they should drink water by measure and with astonishment, that they may want bread and water, and may be astonished one with another and consume away for their iniquity. Right now, let me just pull this in the chat real fast. Right. Okay. He said he was going to break the staff of bread. So pulling that up here, the meaning, it says the phrase break the staff of bread is a biblical expression meaning the Most High removing or cutting off the supply that sustains life, especially food and economic stability. All right. We just read that in Revelation 6 and 8. All right. That he was going to, power was given to the death angels. All right. Over the fourth part of the earth to kill with the sword and with hunger and with death. Okay. Especially food and economic stability. In ancient times, a staff, a walking stick symbolized support or something you lean on. So bread represents the basic food supply. When the Bible says the Most High will break the staff of bread, it means he will remove support that keeps people alive. Whoo, shit. You know? And in this society, you know, a lot of people are fucking gluttonous. They're obese, overweight. A lot of people never even heard of fasting, you know? So they're getting ready to get that. People are about to get on the extreme diet plan. All right. He will remove the support that keeps people alive, causing famine, scarcity, and economic collapse. Okay. Ezekiel 4:16, as we read, meaning break, cut off, destroy, staff, support, stability, bread, food supply, daily subsistence. So the prophecy means the Most High would remove the food supply and cause severe famine. Okay. Notice the result in the verse. Eat bread by weight, rationing food, drink water by measure, limited water. All right. And that's happening too. What you call it? The data centers, you know, because of the influx of the AI and these building of these data centers, what is it doing? It's drinking up all the water, man. Okay, because they use the water to cool off the machinery, and the water becomes toxic after that. So America's literally running out of water behind that as well, right? With astonishment, people shocked at the crisis. Okay, as we read that earlier in 1 Thessalonians 5 and 1. All right, what did it say in that definition again? The time when when things are brought to a crisis, the decisive epoch waited for, right? It's coming, you know? Supporting precepts, famine as judgment, Leviticus 26:26, meaning food shortages, bread ration, many people competing for little food. Number 2, total collapse of provision, Isaiah 3:1. The Lord doeth take away from Jerusalem and from Judah the stay and the staff, and the whole stay of bread and the whole stay of water. Here the staff again represents economic and food support being removed. Okay. Let's see if there's a little more. Prophetic application. Many teachers connect breaking the staff of bread to modern conditions like supply chain breakdowns, as we were just watching in this video, food shortages, inflation in groceries, as we talked about, or as he talked about, drought and crop failures, war disrupting global food trade. For example, the events affecting major trade routes like the Strait of Hormuz could disrupt oil and shipping, which can trigger global food shortages. Since modern agriculture depends heavily on fuel and global logistics. Okay, there you go. So let's go to the next point, man. Right? This came out 3 hours ago. NBC News, the U.S. locked in a test of wills as Iran vows to keep Strait of Hormuz closed, military analysis.
But we do want to turn now to the latest fallout from the war against Iran and the intensifying disruption to global energy markets as President Trump tries to downplay the economic impact of rising oil prices and as Iran's new supreme leader issues what the state media is calling his first public statement since his country's senior leadership was decimated by U.S. and Israeli strikes. We should note we did not hear or see the new supreme leader himself, who was wounded during the start of the war. Rather, an anchor on state TV read his defiant statement in which he vowed to keep blocking transit through the Strait of Hormuz, a vital artery for roughly 20% of the world's oil. It comes as Iran intensifies its strikes on oil related to targets throughout the region. This week alone, Iran has hit a fuel tank at a port in Oman, 2 fuel tankers off the coast of Iraq, and an energy refinery in Bahrain. Today, crude oil prices settled around $96 a barrel, up 42% since the start of the war. A separate benchmark for oil prices in Europe settled above $100 today for the first time since August of 2022. President Trump now arguing rising prices are not a bad thing, saying in a post on social media that when oil prices go up, quote, we make a lot of money from domestic oil production, and going on to say that it's more important to stop Iran from having nuclear weapons. Meanwhile, there are still major questions about the U.S. Navy's ability to escort oil tankers through the strait, as the administration has promised. Here's what the Trump administration is saying about all of that today.
It'll happen relatively soon, but it can't happen now. We're simply not ready. All of our military assets right now are focused on destroying Iran's offensive capabilities and the manufacturing industry that supplies their offensive capabilities.
Do you think by the end of this month, the U.S. Navy will be escorting some of those ships through the strait?
I think that, yes, I think that is quite likely the case. But again, I mean, I'll be over at the Pentagon later today, but that is what the military is working on.
It is my belief that as soon as it is militarily possible, the U.S. Navy, and perhaps with an international coalition, will be escorting vessels through.
Now, it's hard to overstate the significance of this war when it comes to the U.S. and global economy. In its monthly report, the International Energy Agency warning it's creating, quote, the largest supply disruption in the history of the global oil market, and adding that the current flow through the Strait of Hormuz is somewhere between a trickle and a near standstill. This video from the group Marine Traffic, which monitors the movement of vessels around the world, showing the reduced traffic through the Strait of Hormuz. We should note that some of the noise could be the result of satellite disruptions or signal jammers. All of this coming as President Trump continues to offer more mixed messaging about his strategy, claiming the U.S. has already won the war, but also that the U.S. needs to finish the job.
You know, you never like to say too early you won. We won. We won the bet. In the first hour, it was over. But we won. But I'm pleased to report that earlier today, the International Energy Agency agreed to coordinate the release of a record 400 million barrels of oil from various national petroleum reserves around the world, which will substantially reduce the oil prices as we end this threat to America and this threat to the world. We don't want to leave early, do we, huh? We got to finish the job, right?
Joining me now is
just lying to the people, man. Things are not going as planned as they're putting in this mainstream at all, right? Real quick. Psalm 10 and 6. And it reads, he's safe in his heart. I shall not be moved, for I shall never be in adversity. All right. Again, the spirit of Esau, the spirit of the Edomite, man. Okay. But the Most High is changing that around. All right. Verse 7. His mouth is full of cursing and deceit and fraud. Under his tongue is mischief and vanity. All right. Just lying to the people. All right. It's not going well for them, man. All right. The capability that Iran has, what they've been doing, they're not running out of missiles as we saw the lesson yesterday. All right. They're being backed by China, Russia, and North Korea, man, with advanced technology. All right. Let's play some more.
This is NBC News Chief Foreign Correspondent Richard Engel, NBC News Senior Business Correspondent Christine Romans, NBC News White House Correspondent Monica Alba, and NBC News International Correspondent Raf Sanchez, who is in Beirut. Thank you all for being here. Richard, let me start with you. So we got this extraordinary audio of the anchor with the state media reading what was purportedly a statement by the new Supreme Leader. But Richard, you can't see the Supreme Leader. We didn't hear his voice. What are the key takeaways and how are people in the region responding?
So first of all, Iranian state media broadcast this message, this statement from the Supreme Leader, Mojtaba Khamenei, his first statement since he was appointed as Supreme Leader, replacing his father, the late Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. And as you say, he was not on camera. There was no picture of him. There was no audio of his voice. And that only is fueling speculation here and around the world that he may have been injured in the same attack that killed his father, that he may have been seriously injured. We're hearing many different reports, none of them confirmed about the severity of his injuries, from an amputated leg to that he might be in a coma. But the fact that he didn't appear on camera, couldn't be heard on camera, is only fueling those rumors that are.
Yeah, and there's a rumor saying that not a Jew got killed. Now, I don't know if it's verified or not, but where's he been at? You know, I haven't seen any videos of him speaking, right? But there's sources saying that he got that Iran got him. All right, so a lot of shit is happening.
That are circulating like wildfire around this region. But the message that he conveyed is one that has been reinforced by other members of the Iranian military, the Revolutionary Guard, particularly about the Strait of Hormuz. So whether this message came directly from him, whether he is incapacitated, we don't know. But the message was clear, and the message was that this tanker war that Iran is engaged in right now will continue.
Well, and Richard, we're seeing those images of massive tanker fires in the Strait and all across the region, quite frankly. The new Supreme Leader has said the Strait should remain closed and is vowing to continue attacks. What is the state of play right now, Richard?
Well, it's not just Iran anymore. Iran's ability to fire missiles, as CENTCOM reports every day, is greatly diminished. And its ability to launch drone attacks against the Gulf. It is still doing it, but not at the same level that it did in the first few days of the war. But I am right now in the northern Israeli city of Haifa, and Hezbollah, which is a militia based in Lebanon, backed by Iran, a supporter of Iran, has now joined in this war in a full way. And you can talk to Raf Sanchez about the impact that is having on Beirut. But it is now for Israel a two-front war, one against Iran.
Mind you, this is what's happening, man. They blowing ships up, man. Oil tankers, all types of stuff. All right, the economy is about to get hit, man. Okay?
And the other up here in the north, a cross-border war into Lebanon. And Israel's defense minister made a direct threat, saying that if the Lebanese government, and the Lebanese government does not support Hezbollah, in fact, the Lebanese government has called on Hezbollah to be disarmed, but the Israeli defense minister said that if the government can't stop Hezbollah from carrying out attacks at northern Israel, then Israeli troops will take more territory inside Lebanon. There are already troops on the ground. More Israeli troops have been deployed to northern Israel for a potential deepening cross-border incursion. Israel already occupies a significant amount of land inside Lebanon and now is threatening to take even more unless the Lebanese government can stop this militia group.
Well, Richard, let me ask you about something that Britain's defense minister is saying, that Iran is likely laying mines in the Strait. What are the implications of that, if true?
It would have a huge implication because mines and sea drones are these kind of weapons that are very difficult to find. They can stay underwater or semi-submerged for a long time. They can be hit accidentally. It is not like stopping an incoming ballistic missile, which you can see, and you can see its trajectory. You can predict its launch. They can linger and serve as a very long-term problem for the Strait of Hormuz. And removing them, like removing mines from the territory, can take a very from the ground can take a very long time.
Yeah, so they have mines and sea drones in the ocean. Okay, that's blowing up ships. All right, so supplies can't get moved through. Okay, real war tactics are going on in the Strait of Hormuz, man. All right, so as we watch that first video, okay, this is going to have a heavy impact on the American economy. All right, now you can watch the rest of that. So I want to get to the point here, right, of why I said pay attention. The play is in motion. Stay on the ready. Right now, check this out, because we've been saying this. It has to go down in this way, right? And how it's looking, right? Let me pull it up. All right, this is from Al Jazeera. Okay, it says headline here: Iran declares U.S.-Israeli economic banking interests in region are targets. All right, so they're targeting American Israeli banks in the region. All right. And it says that IRGC releases a list of offices and infrastructure run by top U.S. companies with Israeli links whose technology has been used for military applications. All right. Microsoft, Google, right? Others. It says, let me jump down here. Yeah, it says Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard, IRGC, has threatened to attack economic centers and banks, right, related to the United States and Israeli entities in the region after what is called an attack on an Iranian bank with the war in its 12th day. Right, and mind you, this war that they're having costing America $1 billion. It says a spokesperson for the Qatam Al Abiya headquarters, a group described as IRGC owned by the United Nations, said on Wednesday that, quote, the enemy left our hands open to targeting economic centers and banks belonging to the United States and the Z regime in the region. You see? So let me add this and we'll play the video. Okay. Matter of fact, let me read this scripture here. All right. Again, stay on the ready. Ecclesiastes 9:12. For man also knoweth not his time, as the fishes that are taken in the evil net, and as the birds that are caught in the snare, so are the sons of men snared in the evil time when it falleth suddenly upon them. Right now, they're targeting banks. They got hackers. Right. Let me put this up too, so you can see, like I said, you can see the play. It's in motion. They about to really use this thing. This thing is going. This calamity is going to bring in that transition. We see it, man. Okay, this is from Exos. It says hackers join U.S. and Israelis fight with Iran. All right. I won't let me look at it. Hold on. Let me see. I think I got it. Let me just read it from a There we go. I got it pulled up on another tab. So I'll just read it from here, even though I can't really show it to y'all. Right. But let me just read this real quick and we'll get to the video. Okay, so reading down here in the same article you see on the screen in Exos, it says U.S. and Israeli military strikes on Iran are playing out in the air and at the sea, while a parallel fight is unfolding online. Right? Why it matters. Iranian actors, both state-linked and loosely affiliated, have a history of cyber attacks against the U.S., but the U.S. and Israeli governments are now using similar tactics. Driving the news, a Wednesday cyber attack allegedly linked to Iran aligned hackers disrupted operations at Stryker, a major U.S. medical technology company. The Wall Street Journal reported. Stryker confirmed in a statement that it is experiencing a global network disruption to our Microsoft environment, but it hasn't seen any signs of ransomware or malware, and now believes the incident is contained. Microsoft declined to comment. The same group claimed on X that it hacked US-based payments from Virafone, from payments firm Virafone. The company said it had found no evidence of a breach and no service disruption. Okay, a little bit more here. So you get the point. So there's a cyber war going on with Iran and the U.S. and in Israel. So what do you think that's going to lead to on top of the supply chain shortages and the shit that's going on in the Strait of Hormuz? It's the perfect setup, right? I'll read a little bit more and we'll get to the video real quick. That's why I said, again, you got to be ready. All right. It says, let me jump down. Bear with me. Where are we at? It says Israel says it's targeting cyber infrastructure. Israel last week carried out a, quote, wide-scale strike targeting a collection of military sites in Tehran that allegedly housed the headquarters of Iranian Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IDF said on X. The IDF claims that the headquarters of the IRGC Cyber and Electronic Headquarters and its intelligence directorate were among the military outposts hit in the strike. Yes, but Iran has been under a near total internet blackout since the U.S. and Israeli strikes began, limiting the flow of information coming out of Iran, Politico noted last week. Last point. Cyber attacks from Iran, the point. By the numbers, Iran-aligned hackers and self-described hacktivist groups have increased activity against entities in the Middle East, the U.S., and parts of Asia following the February 28th airstrikes, according to CrowdStrike. It says, last point, it says these groups have claimed responsibility for attacks against Israeli payment systems. Let me read that again. These groups have claimed responsibility for attacks against Israeli payment systems, the shutdown of Kuwait government websites, and incidents affecting online services at airports. Okay, so you get it. There's a lot more. Okay, it's a fairly long article, but the point is cyber attacks are on deck, right? This is what we're saying here. Okay, this is why I said, as we'll come to this article in a minute, right, from Mike Adams, the coming false flag, why I believe the state is preparing to sacrifice Americans for a war on Iran. And this picture is what caught my eye. Okay, cyber attacks, man. You know, things that are going on online, right? So let's get into the video real quick. Okay, so we see it coming.
Eat Base 44.
I thought that they were going to attack us. I thought they would, if we didn't do this at the time we did it, I think they had in mind to attack us. And
are freaked out, waiting to see how low the Dow will go. They're focused on the Dow, not so focused on OPEC. Yes, OPEC did cut production by 1.5 million barrels per day.
Really, you're seeing just broad-based declines across all of the major technology sectors. Apple's under pressure. Yahoo down 8.5%. Cisco 6.5%. Research in Motion 10%.
It's beginning to look a lot like the global financial crisis. Now we have breaking news as Iran plans to target U.S. banks and California. Now, this is creating a massive financial disaster as the world grapples with oil shocks. So not only are we going to talk about that, we're also going to talk about what's going on right now with JP Morgan Chase as they essentially halt credit. We got a lot of stuff to talk about today. Now, we have a very exciting advocacy update as well at the end of this video as we finally have arrests that have been made. This came out earlier this morning. The Iranian military has warned people to stay at least 1 kilometer away from U.S.-linked banks in the Middle East, stating they will be targeted. And there's multiple reports of this. And that's not the only warning. The FBI has warned police departments in California that Iran wants to retaliate for American attacks by launching offensive drones against the West Coast. And more turmoil in the UAE as sources advise that the UAE has put an unofficial limit of $100,000 to avoid capital flight. Banks will not let you send more than that amount outbound. This shows how serious the situation in Iran has created in the GCC countries housing U.S. bases. Iran is giving its neighbors a choice. Do not rebuild U.S. bases and understand the new reality, which is that accommodation with Iran is necessary for your economies to function.
See? Whew, see? So how much more on a cyber level, man, where they can hack these banks, all right? Shut the banks down. Nobody can get money out. You see what I'm saying? These are the scenarios. Pay attention. The play is in motion. All right? This could lead to them crashing this shit and bringing in the chip. All right?
More breaking news as HSBC Bank in Qatar closes all branches after that Iranian warning. Standard Chartered Bank has begun the evacuation of its employees from its offices in Dubai. The banks have stepped up their precautions after Iran warned that Tehran will target U.S., American, and Israeli banks in the region. And just to remind you guys, we had banking turmoil well before the war. The war is just exaggerating all of the turmoil. Now, this is a nice breakdown from Market Mania. This is Luke. He's been on the channel several times. Luke, if you're watching this, I really appreciate this breakdown. But we had more news this morning, guys, as Go Easy, which is a subprime lender, is absolutely collapsing. Their shares are down 60% after a massive $200 million write-down and dividend suspension. That's in Canada. Now, one of UK's biggest bridging lenders enters administration. Creditors allege a 1.3 billion euro shortfall, and just like Tricolor Auto, double pledging of collateral. I wonder how many of this private equity and private credit has double pledging fraud. Absolutely insane. The giant's BlackRock is gating withdrawals from its $26 billion fund after redemption requests hit 9.3%. Blackstone is scrambling to buy back shares to avoid a total freeze. And on top of that, Bank of America has also issued a warning today that bubble-like price behavior in materials and commodities is here. And another massive warning happening today with JP Morgan Chase. Breaking news as JP Morgan just slammed the brakes on private credit. How many videos have we been doing recently warning you guys what's happening in private credit. Marking down loan portfolios, reducing their book value, and slashing lending and credit to big players like Blue Owl, Blackstone, BlackRock, and more. Devaluing collateral, tightening credit for these giants will lend to higher risk commodities. Private credit, which is a $2 trillion market or more, is facing real stress. Investor redemptions surging, funds gating withdrawals, AI threats hitting software loans hard. Is this the spark for the next stock market crash?
See? You see that? Hey, we not no financial gurus up here, but shit. You know? How much more proof do you need, man? Okay? This Iran situation is about to bring the big one. Right? Let's play a little bit more.
Now, before going to Mitch to talk to him about what all of this means, I want to quickly listen to our friend Milton Friedman talk about the truth and the way things used to be.
I'm not a conservative. I never have been a conservative. Hayek was not a conservative. The book that follows this one in Hayek's list was The Constitution of Liberty, a great book.
Yeah, you can watch the rest of that. All right, that was the point I wanted to get out of that, right? Luke 21:34, and take heed to yourselves, lest at any time your hearts be overcharged with surfeiting and drunkenness and cares of this life, and so that day come upon you unawares, right? For as a snare it should come on all them that dwell on the face of the whole earth, man. So again, you got to be ready. All right. Calamity and judgment can come at any time without warning. Right. Now, going here, before we wrap this up, just want to make that point. Let's summarize it real quick and see what we get from the summary. All right. Let's see. It's not going to let it pull up. Hold on 1 second. It ain't going to let me pull it up. It's all good. All right. Well, let's just read some points here. All right. Introduction. It says, I am writing this March 2026 as American Israeli bombs are falling on Iran in a conflict President Trump promises will be brief, but I do not believe the official justifications. In my view, we are being marched towards a catastrophic domestic false flag operation, engineered by elements of our own state designed to sacrifice American lives on the altar of a forever war. This is not speculation. It is the recognition of a desperate repeating pattern. The warnings about the Iranian drone threats are not intelligence. They are predictive programming for a coming atrocity meant to terrorize the public into full compliance. I believe we are on the precipice and the target is us, right? It says, okay, because they're going to usher this thing in, but they need that black swan event to do it, okay? Let me jump down. I'm not going to read all of this, right? Desperation of a failing empire. Let's read a little bit of that. It says, why would the state turn on its own people? The answer lies in the stark reality of American decline. The strategic initiative has been lost. Iran controls the Strait of Hormuz, the world's critical energy choke point through which a significant portion of global oil flows. In March 2026, President Trump felt compelled to order the U.S. Navy to begin escorting commercial tankers through the strait. As we saw in the video earlier, they got water drones and sea mines in the ocean. All right, so it's going to be damn near impossible to have the Navy escort commercial tankers through that strait because they're going to get blown the hell up. Right, as we saw the video, right, the new leader for Iran said that the Strait of Hormuz is closed. Okay, you see what's happening here, right? It says, let's go back. It says, a move I see not as strength, but as a desperate, deadly gambit by an administration that started a war it cannot finish. See? The petrodollar system, the foundation of American financial dominance, is unraveling. As noted in my recent Brighton podcast analysis, and the American grid has no spare capacity for the AI race the government deems essential. A cornered empire facing the collapse of its financial hegemony is unable to complete industrially will always choose self-preservation over the lives of its citizens. War, especially one triggered by a spectacular domestic attack, becomes a tool to erase debt, reset the system, and redirect sources. You see that? So what does that mean? The transition to the new system. Okay, we're at the doorstep of this shit, man. Let's see. Yeah, that's it, man. You know, so if you can pull this up, you can check that out. Right, but that's the point, man. Let's see what else we got here before we close out. All right. So you see what I'm saying? The play is in motion. All right. Cyber wars, banks getting hacked. Okay, the economy falling. Right? This is from baseunderground.com. It says nearly 1/3 of the people living in the US and Canada believe the world will end during their lifetimes. That's spiritual, man. The 1/3, the elect. Okay, and we believe that Esau's world is going to end in our lifetime, man. Matter of fact, let me add on to that. Ezekiel, was it 21 or 12? Hold on. Ezekiel 12 and 21, right? We know that this shit is about to end. Okay, we see the vision. Okay, Ezekiel 12 and 21. And the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Son of man, what is that proverb that you have in the land of Israel, saying, the days are prolonged and every vision faileth? Tell them, therefore, thus saith the Lord power, Yahweh Shem Shah, I will make this proverb to cease, and they should no more use it as a proverb in Israel, but say unto them, the days are at hand and the effect of every vision. Okay, prophecy coming to pass. Those days are at hand now. But there should be no more vain vision, nor flattering divination within the house of Israel. Verse 25, for I am the Lord, I will speak, in the word that I shall speak shall come to pass. And it should be no more prolonged. For in your days, O rebellious house, will I say the word and will perform it, saith the Lord power, Yahweh Shem Yahushai. All right, and the Lord is doing that. The vision is no longer tarrying. Again, the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Son of man, behold, they of the house of Israel say, the vision that he seeth is for many days to come, and he prophesy of the times that are afar off. Therefore say unto them, thus saith the Lord power, Yahweh Shem Yahushai, there shall none of my words be prolonged any more, but the word which I have spoken shall be done, saith the Lord power, Yahweh Shem Yahushai. So, hey, this is right on time. Okay? The vision, the words of Yahweh Shem Yahushai are no longer being prolonged, man. It's happening. So we know that this shit's about to end in our lifetime. All right? So the spirit. Let's read a little bit and then we'll close it out. It says we live at a time when millions upon millions of us feel deeply unsettled. The news is filled with constant headlines about war, political chaos, economic problems, and major natural disasters. All right, Jeremiah 28 and 8. All right, the prophets that have been before me of old prophesied both of war, plague. Matter of fact, let me not quote it. Let me just read it. Right? As we've been saying, prophecy is too overwhelming. All right? Jeremiah 28 and 8, the prophets that have been before me and before thee of old prophesied both against many countries and against great kingdoms of war and of evil and of pestilence. These are the things that are dominating the headlines, man. Okay? The wrath of the Lord. It says the news is filled with constant headlines about war, political chaos, economic problems, and major natural disasters. It says a lot of people feel like humanity's story is building up to some sort of crescendo, and they are not optimistic about what that will mean. In fact, a new study conducted by researchers at the University of British Columbia has discovered that nearly 1/3 of the people living in the United States and Canada actually believe the world will end within their lifetimes, man. right? It says almost a third of people living in the US and Canada believe that the world will end within their lifetime, according to the new research that could affect how they view the challenges facing society. Though this very much depends on what kind of apocalypse the individual is envisioning, right? So, hey, we see the destruction, man. All right? How the scripture go? When the people lack the vision, they perish. We know what's going to happen. Okay? Let's see if there's any more there. Right? Let's go down a little bit. It says, quote, belief in the end of the world is surprisingly common across North America. Why is that? Because of the prophets, man. All right. This word has gone out. All right. This word would reach the four corners and then the end should come. Belief in the end of the world is surprisingly common across North America, and it's significantly influencing how people interpret and respond to the most pressing threats facing humanity, said Dr. Matthew I. Billett, the study's lead author who conducted the research as a PhD candidate in UBC's psychology department. He is now a postdoctoral scholar at the University of California, Irvine. Okay. Let's see if there's anything else. Yeah, we're not gonna read all of that. So yeah, that's the point, man. All right, this basically they basically did the statistics and all of that. Let's see. Yeah, so we ain't gotta read all of that, man. The point is made, man. All right, it's a wrap out here, you know. So again, the headline. All right, pay attention. The plays in motion. Stay on the ready, man. All right, so there you have it. All right, so 2 weeks, 3 weeks left. The economy taking even more of a hit. Iran, cyber attacks on banks. These things can affect the stock market and the economy. All right. So, as I said before, the writing's on the wall, man. All right. So keep your head on the swivel. All right. This thing's getting ready to happen. Shalom.